Hello and welcome to the Road to Success online masterclass. This is Danny Khursigara, founder of FreedomOne International, executive coaching and business transformation. Good morning and good evening to everyone. We have representation from around 12 countries this morning. So good evening in the United States and UK. Good morning in Asia. Today, I am super excited to introduce a very special guest and a good friend of mine, Sara Landon. Now, about 3 years ago, I had joined a Tele Summit conference, which is an online Tele Summit conference, and I was with my headphones and my cell phone, and there were about 12 speakers on the call, and Sara Landon was the only one that really stood out for me. And the reason she stood out was for two reasons. The first one was because she had a very unique message, and secondly, because of her impeccable approach. I also felt that there was a higher truth being spoken when she delivered her message. So in 2018, I interviewed Sara for my book, Inside Out, Help Millennials Thrive. And since then, she's been one of my rock star connections. So in since the last 3 years or so, I've seen her following grow from double digit to hundreds of thousands of people. And I think it would be very useful to have her on the call. So Sara is called the leader of leaders for the next generation of transformation, a former corporate executive turned inspirational speaker, and a channel of the council. She's recognized as a globally celebrated leader in the field of human potential and spiritual living. Now, the council is a collective of ascended master beings with a higher level consciousness and grander perspective of the human experience. So, Sara, we are very honored and privileged to have you with us. So welcome to the call.
Thank you, Danny. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you perfectly.
Great. Well, I really appreciate that wonderful introduction, and I'm so grateful that we have become friends and connected halfway around the world. I'm so happy to be here with you and your community, and I think we're going to have a really important conversation today. So thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. I've been thinking about this for quite some time, and I'm glad that we could actually make it happen. So the way this is going to work is I'll ask you a couple of questions that I've received, and also that is front of mind of most people these days with what's going on in the world. And I think you can share your experiences and your wisdom and your advice. But also, if anyone else has a question on the call, you can type your question in the chat room, and I'll receive it. And at the right point in time, I will address that with Sara. But I think a lot of the things that I will be asking will already answer a lot of your questions. So let's get cracking.
Great.
So the first question I have is, Sara, I think most of the people here don't know you well, mainly in Asia, I guess. And I think it would be great if you would just give a brief overview of your story and what made you move from living a life of abundance, success, prosperity as a corporate executive, and then doing the amazing work that you're doing now. So just so people get to know you.
Yeah, thank you. I'll start with sort of my upbringing. I grew up in a very traditional Christian home in the Midwest and here in the United States to very loving, wonderful parents. I had a lot of love. My family had a lot of faith. And the only thing we really knew was the Christian way to faith. And so that's how I was raised. And in my teenage years, my mother was a teacher, and she decided to take her entire teaching retirement and buy a restaurant and be a small business owner. And this was when I was about 12 or 13 years of age. And I started working in my mother's restaurant as a cook and a waitress and a dishwasher and whatever else, you do as it is in a small business. You wear lots of hats. And I loved it. I really loved being part of a business at a young age. And at about 13, 14 years old, I saw a infomercial for one of Tony Robbins' products, like tape product sets online. I can't tell you which one it was, but it was something to do with success and, probably awakening the master or the giant within, whichever one it was. And I had to have it. So I got into personal development very young. And I knew if I wanted to create something with my life, if I wanted to go to college, if I wanted to have a business and make a lot of money, I was going to have to do it myself. I was going to have to figure out what that path was. My parents were very successful in their own right, but it wasn't as entrepreneurs or business people or the life that I really wanted to live. So I got into personal development. I found that it absolutely worked for me. This whole idea that you can set goals and work hard and take massive action and accomplish anything, I absolutely believe is true. And so I left high school early, graduated early, got a college scholarship, moved to Seattle, Washington, ended up starting in the business world while I was going to school at night, and did both for a while, and just absolutely fell in love with applying all these personal development concepts that I was using in a corporate environment. And I started in sales. And that's a great place to be if you are in the personal development space and want to set goals. And so I had a wonderful career very, very early, got into technology at a great time, just kept following the processes of setting goals. And I was a continual learner, wanting to continually learn what we can do to be successful and create the life we want to live and have a really big life. And all of that worked. And I found myself at one point in my life going, this is interesting. I've accomplished everything I thought would make me really happy and feel free. And yet inside, I really wasn't enjoying my life the way I thought I would with the amount of success that I had experienced at that point. And around that time, a whole bunch of things happened. My brother died in a car accident. I ended up getting a very rare form of malignant melanoma cancer. And it was a huge wake-up call for me. When my brother died, I walked into this viewing. Very first person I had ever seen that had died was my brother. I walked into a very, very cold room, very heavy emotional room in an Alaska winter day. If you're not familiar with Alaska in the United States, it's probably one of the coldest places that we have, very far north. And I walked into this room and it was just a really, really emotional experience. And after a few minutes, I sat down, and on these metal folding chairs that you would see like in an auditorium or a stadium, maybe, it was also very cold. And within a couple of minutes of sitting there, my entire body started to experience this feeling of liquid love, the warmest, most loving presence I have ever felt. And it started at the top of my head and went all the way down to the bottom of my feet. And within a couple of moments, I was just in this state of pure bliss, absolute peace. I was warm, I was glowing. And I heard over my right shoulder, as clear as day, I heard my brother say, "I'm still here. I'm just not in there." And he was referring to his body, which was on the left side of the room. And I said back to him in my head, "Where are you? And why are why are you talking to me? Where are you?" And he said, "I'm just as here as I ever was. I just left the density of the body, and I'm at a rate of vibration that your physical senses cannot see me and can't experience me because of the level of density you're in when you're in a human body."
Wow.
And we continued to have this conversation for a couple of minutes. And then all of a sudden, the warm, liquid love, peace, bliss went away. And I was right back in the cold, heavy, dark room, back in the heaviness of the emotion. And I still don't have adequate words to explain what the experience was. It was just this feeling of love and presence and peace that I had never felt before in my life. And it was as clear as day to me. That was my brother communicating to me. So this went on for a while. However, I was in the corporate world. I was very focused on my creating success and doing well and taking care of my clients and my company and my coworkers. And I went back to just trying to have a normal life. And yet I continued to have this experience for many years where my brother would talk to me, and I would be in an elevator, for example, and he would say, ask that guy his name. And I'm like, oh, hi, my name's Sarah. Every time the guy's name would be Tim, which is what my brother's name was. He would answer any question I had. And at the time, my questions were much more about trying to understand or rationalize my spiritual beliefs with Christianity. The answers that I had about the Bible that no one could really explain to me, like, how is it that some people go to hell, and things that just never resonated with my soul. And he was able to answer all those questions for me in a really beautiful way. Fast forward to my own awakening experience. That was sort of a prelude to my awakening. And then about 5 years after that, I went sort of full speed into my own personal awakening, which started with getting cancer, going through a massive transformation in my life, really beginning to ask the question, who am I really, and why am I really here? Because I've got the house, I've got the cars, I've got the money, I've got all the things that are supposed to make me happy. And yet in my heart and in my soul, I did not feel like I was living my purpose. I did not know what my purpose was. I had no idea how to get from where I was to the life I thought I should be maybe living. I remember hearing Wayne Dyer talk one day, and someone had said, spiritual teacher Wayne Dyer, and everything in my body just knew that was the path. That was the closest thing that I could figure out. The next closest thing that I could figure out was I would watch Oprah Super Soul Sunday, and I could see myself just sitting under these oak trees talking to Oprah about spirituality and consciousness and those concepts, but I had no reason to think I would ever be doing that. So I went on my life for a little while. I knew what wasn't right. I didn't really know where I was going, but my entire life transformed in the matter of a couple of years. And I cannot say that it was easy by any means. I certainly made it far more difficult than I believe it has to be. But I had these, I had these really big questions. And after a few years of communicating with my brother, which he explained was expanding my awareness of what I believed was possible as far as communication, beginning to understand what is available to us, what that vibration feels like. And it probably was the only way that I could have made that entry level into communicating with non-physical, was with someone I tremendously loved and trusted. And so that was the first step. And then I started waking up in the middle of the night, and I would have this energy, and I would have this wisdom coming through me. And I say coming through me because it wasn't coming from my head. It wasn't things that I knew. It was the answer to the most profound questions, like, who am I? Why am I here? What is the purpose of life? How do we live our purpose? All of these things started coming through me in this incredible wisdom. And I would wake up the next morning after I had been writing, and I would read it, and it was the answers to all of the questions that I really had. Yeah. And it was a much greater collective energy than a singular being like my brother. I didn't know what it was, but I just knew that it had this powerful presence of love, and this incredible wisdom just came through, but I didn't know where it was coming from necessarily. So within a few years, I started receiving that same wisdom through me, only it came through me audibly. My consciousness would step aside either through a meditative process or a hypnosis process. My consciousness would step aside, and all of a sudden this energy would speak through me, They always spoke collectively. They used the word we, and they could answer any question about anything. And this was not my idea of what I was going to do at all. This was not at all how I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
But fast forward to now, I can't even explain the transformation my life has made through living these teachings, practicing these teachings, and bringing through the wisdom from the council. As you mentioned in the introduction, Danny, the council is a group of ascended master beings, a higher collective consciousness that has a much grander viewpoint of the human experience and why we are here and what is possible for our life. They come forth to expand our consciousness and our awareness. And as we do so, we elevate our own vibration and frequency out of denser, heavier, limited states of emotion into peace, joy, love, infinite abundance, well-being, harmony, and into a whole different life experience beyond certainly what I ever thought was possible. Yes. So now my life looks very different. I moved out of the corporate world. I initially moved in more of a direction of personal development. And then through working through my own fears and doubts and all the things that we do on this path, my work and my greatest passion is sharing the council's wisdom and teaching and guiding people how to live the wisdom, integrate the wisdom in their everyday life. It's very much how you become a realized master, a self-realized master of your life experience in a really modern world.
Excellent. Thank you for that. I had my experience with the council a couple of times, and I can, I can't really explain the feeling and the sensation, but that's really something very powerful. And which is why I think, especially in prevalent times when the world is going through massive change, unprecedented times, people haven't seen this, and probably it's, the first time in human history. I haven't lived that long, but that's what I think. But I see the power in that. So I think a question that a lot of people have on their mind right now is that there is a lot of fear in the world just now. Fear of losing their job, fear of losing, finances, fear of losing relationships, fear of falling sick, losing their loved ones. There's a lot of panic, fear, and concern in the world because of what's going on. So what would your message be to people? How to navigate through this period? And how can they not just navigate, but how can they actually exemplify success in their businesses, in corporate, and just in their life in general? What are the few things that they could do? What are the tools that they could elevate their consciousness, understand what's going on, and be able to come out of it? That's a long question.
Great question. Yeah. Great question. So I had an interesting experience. If you go to my website, you'll see that we put a lot of free resources that are channeled messages from the council about COVID-19, about the coronavirus, about navigating these times with ease and grace. And these were done, I believe it was March 15th and March 22nd.
Yeah.
And the foundational message that the council has about this is that this virus has a purpose. It has a reason for being here. It is bringing balance into many different systems, but primarily it is about bringing yourself, your human body, into balance, and as well as our economic and financial systems and all sorts of other systems, proximity-based resource sharing systems, for example, really starting to look more locally at how we share resources on a proximity-based level and being far more efficient and with less impact to the environment. There's those types of things. There's the coming to balance of different financial and economic systems. However, you don't have control over all of those other things. What you really have control over is your own system, meaning your body, meaning your life, meaning your environment, all the things that are part of your system on an everyday level. And they said, this virus, if you are in a state of peace and balance and harmony within your own body and within your own system, you are immune to the virus. That it feeds off of environments that are out of balance. And most all viruses do, but this is, an extreme case of that. So I was sharing recently on another interview some of this wisdom that the council had shared about balance, about how important it is to catch yourself when you're in fear and either go for a walk, turn off the TV, go listen to a beautiful piece of music, go do something creative, really get yourself. And we're going to talk about different dimensions of consciousnesses and how to move through them. But the first and most important thing is that the more fear you're in, the more stress you're under, the more out of balance your system is, the more it breaks down your immune system, and the far more susceptible you are to not maintaining a state of well-being. And I was on an interview, and they were talking about the spiritual and scientific perspectives of this. And I had shared that with a woman, what the council had said, and she said they had a doctor on the day before that said that they had tested that when a person is in fear, when you're highly stressed, your body releases cortisol. Most of us have heard cortisol.
Yeah.
This particular research with these doctors and the scientists showed that the coronavirus thrives in cortisol, the stress hormone. It thrives. People who had very high levels of cortisol were far more susceptible. The people that were in a more peaceful, balanced state where they had far less cortisol in their body had much stronger immunity to it. So fear can be a very helpless thing. It can make us feel very helpless, very out of control, very stressed. And that's probably the least productive thing you can be doing at this time. I want to talk about dimensions of consciousness because it's important to understand. So if you think about this as layers, different dimensions of consciousness exist within different vibrations. So when you are in a very stressed, fearful state, it considerably slows your own vibration. And we can physically see this on people. When someone walks in a room, you can tell if they have a smile on their face, if they have their shoulders back, if they have their head held high and they have a twinkle in their eye. You just can tell they feel good. They're in a high vibration. You can be in the same room with someone that has their head down, shoulders slumped down, they look like they've got the weight of the world on the shoulders, and they're in a much lower state of consciousness. In these layers of consciousness, we have different vibrations and different emotions that exist within them. So the third dimension of consciousness is where we have the state of separation. In separation, there is lack. You are separate. You have lack. There's not enough. There's limited amounts. There is fear, stress. The only way you can get things done, because it's in such a low vibrational state, is to push really hard, to take a lot of effort, to take massive action.
Yeah.
And it breaks down the body quite quickly. And that is why we have disease, stress, overwhelm, pain. Anytime we're in resistance, and you have to be in resistance to hold yourself in those heavier, dense states of consciousness. Anytime we're in resistance, we're creating pain. And it takes a toll on your body, on your emotions, and we limit and begin to narrow our potentials and our possibilities. So when you get into fear, you get into stress, you get into overwhelm, you're down in the density, you are in a feeling of there's not a lot of options, and you try to logically figure it out, and it can be very scary. And we will never rid the third dimension of those things. However, you can elevate your own consciousness to a higher state of consciousness. The fourth dimension the council talks about is the dimension of transformation, where you go, there's something more to me than just my circumstances.
Yes.
I do have some influence over my circumstances, and I may not understand how, but I know that I seem to have some ability to set a goal and achieve it, or heal my body, or heal my past wounds, or create something new, that we begin to move through that layer. So it's a bit of a higher vibration. There's a bit more hopefulness in that. There's a bit more potential that opens up to you. We often stay in that state of transformation. For some people, short periods of time, some people many, many years. The time it takes you to move through the fourth dimension is primarily based on judgment. The time it takes to heal anything is the amount of time you spend judging yourself, others, and your circumstances. So if you realize that somewhere along the line, you made some choices, maybe you weren't really following your intuition, maybe you were really trying hard to make something work, and you put a lot of force and effort in it, it didn't work out, and you feel like you failed. You're aware that you had a choice in it. You're aware you could do something different. You're aware that there's other possibilities. You've probably done some self-reflection. However, the time you sit in that is based on the judgment, and it's usually your judgment of yourself. And we judge what we should have done, or what we should have known, or what we should have thought, and then we judge others involved in the circumstances. And oftentimes we judge the circumstances. Well, that shouldn't have happened. That was wrong. That was bad. All of that keeps you from the ultimate potential for us at this time in this human experience, which is moving into a fifth dimension of consciousness. It is a new energy. It is a new consciousness. The old laws of force and effort and fear and stress and overwhelm don't work there. You cannot take those things into that place. It is a dimension of consciousness of infinite intelligence, infinite possibilities, where energy guides you, where things really are harmonious, easy, effortless, that you understand that you get more of what you are. Not what you want, not what you think you need, not the answer to the problem you think you have. You get more of what you are. So within every single human being, every single one of us, our inherent nature is peace, well-being, abundance, love, harmony, and joy. And all of that exists right here, right now. It is not a different place that you need to get to. Not a different financial place you need to get to, not a different geographical place, not a different place in your relationship, not a different place in your athleticism or your weight or any of that. It is a state of consciousness. It is a different state of consciousness that you get into through elevating your own vibration. There is the easy, effortless path, may not always be logical, but to get you from where you are to what is in your highest and best good. And oftentimes we cannot perceive that with our physical senses. So we look around, go ahead.
So Sara, I think what people focus, because of our conditioning for so many years, the structures we've been living in, most people can't view current circumstances from a higher level of consciousness. So they seem to be overwhelmed, stuck. You know, the world is coming to an end, something's going to happen to me. So in order for them to move from resistance, which I think resistance is more around having the fear, worry, concern, etc., and taking that higher, grander perspective about peace, harmony, success, abundance, prosperity, how can people make that transition quickly so that they could experience all the things that you've been just articulating? Because that's exactly what people are looking for. It's just that they don't know what to do.
Yeah. So here's why we think some of these things are real.
Yeah.
Because how you're perceiving anything is what is creating your reality. It's proven at a scientific experiment. Just whatever you're trying to prove as the outcome automatically refocuses and literally creates an experience, draws to you the experience of whatever it is you're focused on.
Right.
So what you're focused on, what you're thinking about becomes your experience.
Right.
It does, whether you're aware of it or not. So if you're focused on what's going wrong, if you're focused on all the people that have things going wrong, you're just going to draw to you more that creates that reality for you. So that's how powerful we are, whether we know it or not.
Yeah.
Whatever you believe your truth to be will be. Now, I believe there's this knowing inside of us that this is true. And yet, like you said, that's not what we learned when we came into this human experience.
Yes.
And somewhere within you, you know that there's more that's possible for you, or you wouldn't be listening to this.
Exactly.
So the first step is acceptance. The very first step is whatever is going on right now, just accept it. Accept just the way it is right now. Just accept it. And
Because
you will instantly
resistance to a large extent. Yes.
Yeah. So when we are judging any situation as right or wrong, think about something in your own life, Danny, that at the time you just thought was the worst thing that ever happened.
Yes, it keeps coming.
And so when we focus on the worst thing, we tend to draw to us more of the worst thing. But sometimes once we get through that thing, for example, when my brother died, at the time I thought it was one of the worst things that could possibly ever happen. And now I look back at it as one of the greatest gifts in my life that changed the course of my life forever, and who I have become because of that experience. I couldn't have even imagined. The same with having cancer. The level of love and compassion that I have for people now because of what I've gone through was a blessing for me. The way I live my life differently because I had cancer at a very young age has given me a sense of freedom that I never could have had before. So if you decide to see that life is happening for you, not to you, and that when we are fighting against thinking that life is happening to us, and this is terrible, this shouldn't be happening, how do I stop this? You'll notice your whole body just goes, ah. And if you just take a breath and go, this is one of the highest teachings of the council. Everything really is always working out for you. Life is happening for you. And if you believe that, if that becomes what you focus on, if you start to perceive things around you as happening for you, then you begin to draw an experience of that to you. And so the very first step is acceptance. Accept just the way it is right now. And you will find that the instant manifestation is peace. Instant. Whatever it is, doesn't matter if it's a relationship issue, financial situation, health issue. When you are in resistance, you are in fight or flight. You move yourself into a lower dimension of consciousness, which there are far less possibilities and potentials. You are actually moving your own consciousness into the layer of the problem, the challenge, and the issue. And the answer to those things never exists in the same vibration as the problem. It just doesn't.
So we have a choice whether we reduce and diminish our consciousness to the level of the issue, the problem, the fear, or we make a decision to elevate our consciousness towards a vision of the future.
Well, I would say come fully present into the moment.
Yeah.
We have no power in the past. When you are thinking about something you feel guilty about or resentful about, telling an old story, explaining how you got to be the way you are, you don't have any power.
Yeah.
It makes you feel really powerless. When you're really in the moment, when you take a breath and put some space around you, everything in the moment really is fine.
Yeah.
When you start getting stressed and anxious and worried about the future, you will feel helpless. You have no power by stressing and worrying about the future. How many times do we worry about things that never happen? And what are we worried about? That those things are going to take our ability away to enjoy our life and live our life and be happy in our life. And the truth is, they don't have that power. You're choosing that instead of being happy now, instead of being in peace now, instead of feeling the fullness of your life and all that you have now. The council says, if tomorrow you woke up and the house that you have, or the spouse that you have, or the car that you have, or the leg that you have, or the eyesight that you have was suddenly gone, all you would want was everything you have right now.
It's very true. Absolutely.
And when you can come into the moment and be in the fullness of all that you are and all that you have, and choose to align with abundance in this moment, we get more of what we are. And I'm going to go into this for a minute, because I was very focused my years in my life of creating success, financial success, wealth, abundance, prosperity on the highest levels. I read many, many books about how to create success and wealth. And all of them essentially were about the different strategies and tactics to make money so that you would be free. Money gives you freedom and happiness and the ability to do the things you want to do when you want to do them. And however, while those things worked to make money, I never reached a place of freedom, no matter how much money I had. I never reached a place where I felt like I could even really do the things I wanted to do. Success, abundance, wealth, prosperity is about freedom. And if in this moment you are holding yourself hostage and choosing to be in a level of bondage because of the thoughts you're thinking about your life, then there's no amount of money that's going to gain you that freedom. Most people, and I see this time and time again, they work really hard so they can be successful and be free and do what they want to do, when if you would have done it from this moment here, aligned with the freedom you have, aligned with all that you have right now, know that you will always have what you need when you need it, and to learn to remember how to follow energy. Money at its core is energy. It is. When you are constricting your energy because you're in resistance, you are limiting the flow of infinite abundance, well-being, prosperity that is always available to you. It is a way of being that draws to you from your own force field. It's all your energy. It's all your energy. That might not make sense to the brain, but something within you knows that. It's all your energy. But what we have learned to do is try to push and force energy to go where we think it should go, instead of getting in alignment with this much grander perspective, this much greater viewpoint of who you are and what is in your highest good and what is the shortest path from where you are to where you want to be. And when you start getting into alignment with that, raise your own vibration, your consciousness, and go with that flow, you will have not only wealth, abundance, and prosperity, but freedom happiness, well-being, and everything you need to do what you're being called to do when you're being called to do it. We just try to force it usually on our own time frame, the way we think it should be.
Yes.
This is one of the teachings of the council. Money is never the issue. And I've probably done over 200 sessions about this one particular issue, this one particular question, where sure people say, no, my case is different. My issue really is a money issue. And every single time without fail, by the end of that session, they absolutely see it was not a money issue. It was a consciousness issue and an issue of not following the energy.
Excellent.
And there's a reason, if the money's not there, that it's not there. And it's usually clarity, confidence, a certain level of certainty. And when we don't really trust ourselves, we might be saying this is what I want, but the signal you're sending the universe is canceling that out. As much as you're wanting to attract something, oftentimes we are repelling the very thing we want energetically. It's all about energy.
Yeah. Excellent.
And you know, what I would have said to myself 10, 15 years ago is, yeah, okay, this is all really, really good. Now, what do I do now to make, what do I do now? What do I do with all this? Yes, I want peace and happiness and joy and abundance. So what do I do? Right? And that's what we tend to think, is we have to go do something and make something happen now. And it truly is about living your life fully. Even in times like this, it's more about living your life fully. The council says, when you wake up in the morning and you go, what am I supposed to do today? What am I supposed to do today? Instead of saying that, say, what do I want to experience today? How do I want to live my life fully today? What can I do right now that would really bring me to a place of joy? What do I want to experience today? How do I want to live my life more fully? How can I experience joy right now?
It's about
if you wrote
your power.
Yeah. If you wrote down those questions, or just took any one of the three, whichever one feels good to you. Yeah. And every day, all throughout the day, that's the question you asked yourself.
Yes.
You would have a very different life in a very short period of time, because you're empowering yourself, you're elevating your consciousness and your perspective, you're focused on living, you're focused on joy, and you're focused on having the experiences you want to have. The other interesting thing to me is, no matter how many times I ask people, what do you want? What do you want in your life? Underneath all of it, it's all the same. I talk a lot about, you wouldn't even have the dream in your heart if you weren't meant to live it.
Absolutely.
And some people say to me, I don't even know what the dream in my heart is anymore.
Actually, that's a question that's just come up to me twice and thrice right now, saying that we are in our 40s and we still don't know the why of our existence.
Yeah. So, here's why. Because you have bought into a belief that it's about a certain amount of money in your bank, that it's a certain car you drive, that it's a certain title you have, and it's about how much you have done. And I have yet to find someone, when you really get down to the dream in someone's heart, it's to be happy, to be free to live your life and do the things you love. It's to have harmonious, loving relationships. It's about having energy and vitality and passion in your life. It's about peace and well-being. It's about being in harmony with others and harmony within yourself. Freedom, love, harmony, peace, joy, well-being, abundance. The dream is the same for everyone.
It's
We
actually
all want these
back,
things.
it's going back to when we were born, basically. So we were born perfect, and we've built on all these layers around us, the life we think we should be having, because that's the norm or that's our expectation. But I think going back to basics, going back to the fundamentals, which is what you just mentioned around harmony, peace, joy, love, going that route is much easier than any other efforting that we do.
Yeah, and here's a really simple way to look at this logically. When you're around someone that's peaceful and joyful and loving and happy, don't you want to do business with them?
Sure.
Don't you want to refer them to your friends? Don't you want to be around them?
Absolutely.
That is what draws people to you. It's back to energy. When you are this radiant being, when you are in joy, when you are happy, when you are in a great place, when you are uplifted yourself so that you can uplift others, people want to be around you. You will be the most magnetic, abundant person you can imagine. Yeah. And it's about what you feel within. So it is about going one step deeper. So give me an example, Danny, of something you want.
Let's say more abundance, being more successful. Let's start with that.
So if you were more successful, how would you feel?
More free. But I think that's something that you could feel free now in this moment. You could probably...
So, yeah, here's a funny game we play that we're not even conscious of. For most people, first off, more success would not lead to more freedom. For most people, more success, meaning a bigger company and more clients making more money, would actually mean more responsibilities. True. More people that you're responsible for and more clients, right? But what you really want is freedom. And yet what we do all day long is say, well, I can't have that. Well, I can't do that. I can't because I don't have the money. I would if I had the money. Even as simple as you have the freedom every day, what you wear, what you eat for breakfast, what you eat for lunch, who you call, which way you go. All day long, you're making thousands and thousands of choices that you are free to make. And when you start noticing the freedom you do have to make all sorts of choices all day long, you start realizing it wasn't the money that was ever going to give you the freedom anyway. Yeah. It's the mindset, it's the way you think, it's the level of consciousness you're in. Yeah. The other thing about this is, the council says one of the core truths is galore, I always have everything I need and more. That simple affirmation changed my life. I can't even explain it to you. I did it for a little less than 30 days, and I had the most unbelievable things happen on a financial perspective, opportunities, connections, things that I can't even explain. I still don't know how they ever happened. But it was by aligning with that one truth, and I just said it all day long. Every time I worried about money, every time I didn't know how it was going to happen, I just said, galore, I always have everything I need and more. And in the moment, I was like, in this moment, I do have everything I need. Maybe I don't have the money to pay rent in 2 weeks, but today I have everything I need. Yeah. Maybe I don't have the money to retire in 10 years, but today I do have everything I need. And the council says, so play this little game with yourself and do this. And notice, we always create this big story in our head. And they said, So what is something you would do today, Danny? You have to do it today. What is something you would do today if you had the freedom and success that you want to have?
What would I do today? Nothing much different than what I do right now. It's just that the feeling probably would be different for most people. Like it's the level of, so it could be that people attach their confidence or self-esteem to financial success or abundance.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what you'd say is that you can have that level of self-esteem and confidence even now without that financial abundance.
Well, and if it is about your thinking, your thoughts affect your emotions. Your emotions affect the way you feel.
True.
The way you feel affects the vibration you're in, which affects the consciousness you're in, which is drawing your reality to you. So, for example, I had a client who was in her 60s, really at the end of her career, and really worried about money for retirement. Really worried about money for retirement. She had a particular amount of money that she thought she needed to make or manifest or create in order to not have to worry about money in her retirement. So within about 3 months of working together, one of her family members passed away and left her not only the amount of money she wanted, but more than she really could have thought. And it was a relative that was younger than her. It had no reason to think this man was going to pass away. And he did, and left her all the money. And in a very short period of time, after getting exactly what she wanted financially, to never have to worry about money again in her retirement, all of the thoughts that she was thinking before now became a fear that she was going to lose the money.
Yeah.
So it is a mindset. It is the thoughts you're thinking. It is the level of consciousness you're in because of what you're thinking about. So right now, if we know that there's nothing you would do today that much different, then what can you do? What is the experience you want to have today? How do you want to live your life fully today? What would bring you joy? And you go do those things.
Yeah.
You know, I thought that I had to make a certain amount of money, and once I did, then I could afford to buy a house and live in this particular area of the world that I really wanted to live in. I wouldn't have to travel all the time. I could enjoy my home, my dogs, my life. I could wake up when I wanted. I could do what I loved all day. And in my head, I had that planned out that was going to take me about 15 years. Using the wisdom of the council, I created it in about 3 years.
Wow.
And without force, without effort, without struggling or suffering, I actually live a life better than what I could have imagined, because I do what I love, and it's not a job and it's not work. And that's what's possible really for everyone. And I really mean that.
So Sarah, I'm receiving a lot of comments about what you're just saying, and it resonates a lot with people. A lot of questions around purpose that came, and I think you've answered that. One question people are asking is if you had to articulate your purpose, which I think you already did in the beginning, but if you could say it once more. There are quite a few questions around what is your single most purpose right now as we speak?
Okay, well, let me give you guys a couple of tools here. So, number one, I want you to think about the people in your life that you love the most, Danny. Think about your daughters. Think about the people that you really, really love the most in your life. What is the one characteristic you would wish to give them that no matter whatever happened, nothing and no one could ever take this one thing away from them.
Love.
So
There's nothing more.
what's love? What does love mean to you?
I think love is life. And if you can't have the capacity to, we all are born with this capacity to love. And at the end of the day, when we really have nothing, the only thing we're left with is our love. That's what I feel personally. Love for yourself as well as your family or whoever, you feel for. So I think at the end of the day, when everything hits the ground, it's love that survives. That's for me. That's just me.
So the answer is love all day long, to be the living expression of the thing that is the most important to you. The thing you most want for others is what you're here to experience for yourself.
Absolutely.
Because in experiencing it for yourself, you will remind others that they too are love and can live a life of love. And I take people through this longer process where there is about 4 or 5 things that they come up with, like love, wisdom, fun, harmony. I've done this process with hundreds of people. Yeah. No 2 people ever have the same values, and no 2 people ever define them the same. Your purpose is to live these things and be these things and experience these things for yourself. My purpose is to bring love, wisdom, joy, harmony to the world through me embodying those things and living them to the fullest. So don't make it that difficult. When we think our purpose is to write a New York Times selling book that has to be on every bookstore, you're creating this huge gap.
Yeah.
And you separate yourself from the opportunities that you have today to change someone's life by just you showing up and being the love that you are. The second part of that question about purpose is, well, let me just say something about that. I am the one who most needed to remember the wisdom that the council brings through. I was so busy focused on all these goals and all these things I thought I had to do to really be good enough and be enough and live my purpose. This whole thing about our purpose is really because we are constantly motivated to try to avoid some unwanted circumstance. So we run around trying to be motivated to accomplish. And all of this is because we think somehow we can get our purpose wrong. But the truth is, we're living so far out of alignment with our purpose all day long because we're so focused out there on all the things that have really nothing to do with our purpose. So the second thing I say to people is, imagine that your life is a quest. You came here to this human experience on a quest to answer one question. What's the question? What's the question that you're always seeking the answer to? That you just can't ever turn it off, because there's always this question. For me, the question was, how do I live my highest potential?
Yes.
How do I really live my highest potential?
For me, it's always about fulfillment.
Mm-hmm.
How do I find fulfillment in whatever I do?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
And so that question is drawing to you, whatever your question is, that question is drawing to you all sorts of experiences. And your continual focus is about fulfillment. So it's like your entire life experience is this writing of this book that says, here's what I've learned about how I found fulfillment. And every day you can be embodying that, expressing that to the fullest, sharing that, being this incredible guiding light for any and all others who are asking that question. Now, no one ever said you had to have it all figured out. It's your journey and what you've learned along the way. And I see this happen so many times. People think, well, I don't have it all figured out, so I can't speak, or I don't have it all figured out, so I can't help anybody. No, that's not what it's about. Every day we learn more. Every day we go deeper. Every day we discover something new. You're never going to have it all figured out.
Yeah.
Share from this moment all that you are. And the thing I would say is, just being aware to fulfillment and being fulfilled. Are you really fully being who you are? Or are you sort of playing small and dimming your light because, I haven't accomplished this yet, or I haven't made this amount of money yet, or I haven't gotten this figured out yet. And this little voice in our head goes, but you're not good enough yet. You haven't got all of it figured out yet. And so we shrink down. We dim our light. We kind of play small. We doubt ourselves. That's the opposite of living in your fullness.
Yeah.
Your fullness is when you can walk into a room in your power, loving yourself, not needing anyone else to accept you or approve of you or understand you, because you know who you are. And you are so present and conscious and fulfilling and being the love that you are and the incredibly divine being that you are, that you'll walk into a room and you will just glow.
Yeah. Awesome. Yes. I'm receiving a lot of feedback, and thanks for that. I think it's simple yet a very, very powerful message, Sara. Thanks a lot. Do you think we could spend a few minutes, if there's any message that the council would like to give the audience here? Do you think?
Yeah. Something that's really strongly coming in is this is going to be one of the most innovative times in human history. This is the greatest opportunity for a transformation of consciousness that has ever existed in any lifetime. What we are living through right now is the greatest potential for a transformation of human consciousness that has ever existed. This will be a time of great innovation. This will be a time of advancement and creativity. So my message to everyone is, you really don't have time for fear right now. You really don't have time to be stressed out and worried. You really don't. Because there's so much potential for creativity, innovation, inspiration. And so start by focusing your energy each day on creating. And I don't care if you go out in your yard and you take a bunch of rocks and you make a little heart in the ground, or if you decide to cook something and really be conscious and present that you are creating. Write a little story, draw, color, paint, pick up a musical instrument, do something creative.
Yeah.
When you start focusing on creativity, the floodgates open And if you're not feeling a whole lot of passion in your life, which most people, when you're in fear and stress, if you're watching the news right now and you're overwhelmed, you don't have a lot of energy, you don't have a lot of vitality, you won't have a lot of passion, you won't have a lot of creativity. And so if you just shift a little bit to, you know what, this time is a blessing.
Yeah.
It's a gift. It's an opportunity for you to totally come into balance within yourself, within your environment, and to reconnect with, and I'm going to use this word, your innocence. You came into this world with innocence, that childlike wonder, where if you wanted to be a superhero or a doctor, you ran in the house and you grabbed a blanket or a sheet and you put it over your shoulders and you were a doctor, or you were a superhero, or you were a superwoman.
Yeah.
This is the time to get back to that innocence, back to that level of creative expression, back to that level of joy, creating just for the joy of creating. We've gotten to this place where everything we're doing has a expectation around it, has an agenda. And the council says true creation has no personal agenda. You're not painting that piece of art to sell it for $1 million. You're not starting the business to make a lot of money. You're doing it because you love it. It's fun. You're passionate. It's creative. You want to do it. That's why, from this just pure innocent place, because it feels so good to create something that you enjoy and you love and that you're passionate about.
Absolutely.
That's innocence. And, you know, impeccable is something that the council also talks about, being impeccable, which is not integrity. You can't tell someone what is impeccable or what's in integrity, but impeccable is to be in alignment with the highest, the very highest good, the highest potential and possibility. And our logical human mind doesn't know what that is. But there is a source within you. There's a power within you. You have a higher self. You have a soul that is limitless and eternal. And it knows who you are, and it knows where you are, and it knows the easiest, most effortless path from where you are to everything you need. And if you will allow yourself to align to that part of you through your joy, through your creativity, through your creative expression, through your passion, because all of that elevates your energy and your vibration. And you will feel that connection to whatever you call your higher power, whether it's source, God, with God, anything is possible, whether it's your soul, whatever you call it. That's what you really want here. You don't want to logically figure it out with your limited human senses. You want that grander part of you to start expressing itself in your life.
Wow. So this moment that these times we are living in are actually an opportunity to step into our best selves. It's an opportunity to claim our own power.
Yeah.
Where you articulate it so beautifully, and I think everyone on the call understands it, but I wish we could actually spread this message even more, because what people are thinking presently is very much contrary to this conversation.
Well, let me say something about that.
Yeah.
You know, there's all sorts of books in the world. There's all sorts of information out there. There's all sorts of different ways that these things have been said. Truth is only relevant when it has been experienced.
True.
So you can hear all of this and you can go back to doing the things that you were doing, the stress, the worry, the overwhelm, the trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Or maybe you could just give yourself a week or 2 or 3 to experience this for yourself. And once you do, and once it becomes your way of being, that's really the only thing that you can do to positively impact others. Really, it's true. We want to try to change millions of people's lives by getting this message out there. You are the message. The way you're living and being, how you're living your life is the message. And when you're really, really in alignment with that, your kids are going to come to you and say, how do I find more peace in all of this? How do I create a life I love? Your friends, your family, they're going to be coming to you. And the greatest feeling in the world is to be in your truth, be in your heart, share from your heart, be all that you are, and watch it change someone else's life, especially the people you love the most. So be the messenger by the way you're living your life. And if everybody on this call does it, and it helps someone, and it helps someone, and it helps someone, that's the ripple effect that's going to change the world.
Yeah. Beautiful, Sara. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is great. This is great. I'm sure people have taken away a lot. Again, if anyone has a question, you could type in the chat and I can raise that with Sara. If not, are there any last words you'd like to leave people with?
Yeah, I would really invite everyone. We don't have enough time to bring the council in, but they're always here, and that was all from them. All of this is pretty much all from them. Please go to my website, and there are 2 really important free resources there. It's saralandon.com, SaraLandon.com. Go to free resources. There is a message called COVID-19 coronavirus that was recorded on March 15th that includes an incredibly powerful message, channeled message from the council. There's a follow-up to that called Navigating Current Events, or Navigating Current Events with Greater Ease and Peace and Grace, which is a follow-up message from March 22nd. You can listen to them in any order, but there is so much information there. There's so much support there. There's tons of other free resources on my website, but you can also find those 2 videos on my YouTube channel, which is Sara Landon Life, Life. And I really just encourage everyone to go and listen to those 2 messages or any of the other messages under the free resources that you're guided to. And I think you will find tremendous value during this time. I have a lot of clients that say they just turn the council on and listen to the council all day because the vibration they get in, the state of consciousness they're in, they just are inspired, and they have the time and the space now to be able to do that. And I really encourage you to, if it resonates with you and if it's a feeling of coming home and it feels good to you, then listen to the messages again and again throughout the day when you need to feel uplifted and elevate your perspective a little bit about what's going on here.
Thank you so much, Sara. I just got one last question, if we could do it.
Absolutely.
Fast, and somebody's asking.
Happy to do it.
How do we train our mind to disengage from past negative thoughts?
Yeah, really good question. You have a clean slate in this moment. You have a clean slate in this moment. And every thought that comes after this moment is a choice.
Beautiful.
And you do not ever have to tell that old story again. You don't ever have to think about it again. But usually why we do is because of judgment. Judging yourself in the old story, judging the circumstances, judging other people. And judgment will always entangle you with limitation, with density, with fear, with hopelessness and separation. And There's no judgment from the other side ever. If I could say one thing in the thousands and thousands and thousands of channels I've done with people and groups, there is never, ever one time, ever been any instance where there is ever judgment from the other side, from your higher self, from your soul, from your God, from your source. There's no judgment. And that's why it feels so awful when we do it to ourselves, because it's just not who you are. So you have a clean slate in this moment. Every thought that comes after this, imagine that it's going to happen instantly. And start talking to yourself. And sometimes saying your thoughts out loud is one of the best ways to really see
that's
what you're just letting go around in your head. And when you say it out loud and it just sounds so silly, and then you can go, you know what? I got this. I can do this. I really do have a good life. Really do think things are going to work out for me. I really am happy to see what comes next. I really do want love in my life. I really do have love in my life. I really am blessed. I really do feel peaceful in this moment. You can start talking to yourself that way out loud.
I think you're absolutely right, because self-talk, the dialogue we have with ourselves, will determine the quality of our lives or the direction of our life. Because if it's not empowering, we are always kind of living in judgment and creating our reality, just exactly what you mentioned. And I've been practicing this a lot in terms of, being more careful about my own self-talk, because you tend to go back into fear mode or, past thinking. But I've always found that whenever I allow things to happen more freely in fun and joy, when there's less pressure, things manifest or get created much more faster with grace and ease than by struggling or efforting or working 16 hours a day. So it's just, I think it's a muscle we need to work on every day. Be conscious about what you're thinking, be conscious about what you're saying, and being conscious about what we're doing. And I think that momentum at some point in time will determine the quality of our lives.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Sara. Thank you very, very much for being with us. I've learned a lot. I always learn a lot when I'm speaking to you and the council. I'm hoping, maybe on the next call we can bring them in as well.
Absolutely.
And I, on behalf of everyone at the call, I would thank all of you. And if you want to, you get in touch with Sara, you could find her at www.saralandon.com. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. SARALANDON.
SARA, not SARAH. So SARALANDON.com. And thank you once again. It's always a blessing to have you with me.
Thank you. I love you, my friend. This has been great. I really hope that it brought some peace and some calm and some good well-being to everyone who listens.
Absolutely.
So, thank you.
It has. Thank you so much, and God bless.
God bless.